Boxing news.
Ultimately, for you, why did you could have boxed for any promotion, I would imagine, and other promoters have talked about you. Ultimately, why did you decide to sign with Nikisa and Jake?
I think that, you see a lot of what they've done for Serrano and Taylor and promoting fights like that. That's a huge thing. But not only that, I like to be somewhere where there's also an equal amount of excitement. And their excitement of wanting me to be with them, I just feel like it was just something that it just made sense. I don't know why. There was really no reason for me to go somewhere else. This just made sense. When I was fighting before in boxing, I did fight on televised bouts a handful of times, but not all the time. So I'm thankful for the efforts that they have put forth.
Holm signing to most valuable promotions instead of some other promoter is seemingly a no-brainer. They have fast become the authority on the women's game, and they have the strongest stable. And Holly, with MVP, she won't just be another female fighter that they're promoting per se, like she might have been with someone else. They would build something around her, something big. Now, I happen to think the end game for Holly is get her 1 or 2 tune-up fights, then put her in there with Stephanie Hearn so that Holly can then defend that title against Amanda Serrano, win or lose after the Katie Taylor trilogy. That's what I think the end game is. It's heartwarming that Holm was able to come back to the sport of boxing after all these years and reap the benefits of its renaissance, of its growth, because so many other women couldn't. Holm represents a time in the sport where women in boxing was but a novelty or a pet project. She said it herself. She only fought in televised bouts a handful of times. It wasn't all the time the way that it is now for some fighters, and that she gets to come back and enjoy that herself, make good money while she does it. It's a feel-good story. And for this feel-good story to pan out, well, Holly not only needs to win her next fight, but she needs to get her hands on the title. And the most winnable title is Stephanie Hearn's title. Stephanie doesn't have anywhere near as much experience as Holly, but she is younger, and she is an aggressive customer, a physical fighter. Good right hand. So the question then becomes, how is Holly going to deal with that?
I'm training as if this is for a title, I know she's going to be tough, but I've been having a lot of fun getting back to boxing, and I think I think my boxing this time around is going to be a little different than my boxing before. I've had 10 years of fighting or more since my last boxing fight till now. And I feel like my style of boxing will be slightly different than when I just boxed before.
I wondered about that. It's been a little over 12 years since Holly Holmes' last boxing match, and a lot has happened since then. So when she returns, will she return with that same style? What I remember of Holly was she was a stick-and-move kind of fighter, outside fighter, defensively minded. Is that what we can expect? And apparently, Holly plans on implementing a few changes and a few tricks that she picked up along the way. What would be the biggest difference between how Holly used to box and how she means to now? A bit more spice, a bit more spite, stepping into her punches and sitting on them a bit more, as opposed to fighting on the balls of her feet, moving around and using the ring. That's what she used to do primarily. The relevance of it is, what are we going to see in the Gomez fight? And what are we going to see in a potential Stephanie Hearn fight? That if history is not an indicator of things to come, and Holly's switching things up a bit, how will the aesthetic of those fights look? And does that better or worsen her chances now that Holly is in her early 40s?
Can you tell us a little bit more? What will have changed about you?
I just feel like there's other things I learned through MMA that when I come back to boxing, I find myself like not always doing the same thing that I used to do in boxing before. And there are things that I remember from boxing. I'm like, man, this worked all the time back then. I'm just going to keep doing this too. But I just feel like it's going to be like a mix, because I have been fighting this whole time, even though I haven't boxed in years.
Right.
It's not ageism. It's a relevant factor in the conversation that Holly Holm is in her early 40s now, and you see with Erislandy Lara, who, like Holly, was a stick-and-move outside fighter in his prime, he sits on his punches more now, lands with more authority now, because he's not on the balls of his feet. He's sticking it on guys now, hurting guys. So is that what we can expect from Holly Holm? It's all very exciting, Holly Holm coming back to the sport this way, and I look forward to seeing her. I'm glad that she is now getting to reap the benefits of where women's boxing is now, as opposed to where it was then, when she was fighting. I relish the opportunity to see what she's going to bring to the table, and frankly, I think she's hot. I've always thought she was hot, and that's the way I see it.
It's not Devin's job to make the fight more competitive. And when I first seen like the first round of the Devin fight, I'm like, man, he looks a little jittery, like maybe a little PTSD from the last fight, till he, you know, kind of settles down and finds his rhythm and finds his timing and his distance. You know, let me just use the ring, the whole ring, until I figure out where I'm at and what I'm doing, and then, you know, go from there. And then the third round went, and then the fifth round went, and then the seventh round went, and, you know, then before you know it, 12 rounds gone by, and he left the ring unscathed, uncut, unbruised, and was ready to move on to the round fight, right? And I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, he's scared, that's why he's fighting like that. But when you fight a whole fight like that, if that was nervous energy, you would have burnt yourself out. You know, you would have been, like, he clearly trained to fight like that, so that was purposeful. You know, he did that on purpose. Because fighting like that for 12 rounds is not easy. The amount of discipline it takes, the amount of mental focus it takes, the amount of leg conditioning it takes, it's not easy. Now, was it the most appetizing fight? No. Was it the most back and forth fight? No. Was it the most, you know, exciting and, man, I want to run that one back? No. But it's not Devin's job to make the fight more competitive. Mm-hmm. It's not Devin's job to make the fight more exciting. It's Jose's job to make the fight more competitive. It's Jose's job to make the fight more exciting.
No, Caleb is only half right. He's half right. While it isn't Devin's job to make Jose's job easier, or to make the fight competitive, that's not Devin's assignment, that's not his role. It is his role to entertain. That is his job. Just as much as it's Jose's. You can't place all the burden on one fighter when there are two of them in the ring to put on a satiating performance for the people that show up to be there and the people at home paying to see it. It's not just Jose's job to make it entertaining. It's Devin's too, so that if Devin wins the fight, and he did in the manner that he won it, when people don't want to see him after that, don't be surprised, since you don't think it's your job to entertain them. You think it's your job to just coast and survive, and people are supposed to be satisfied with that. Well, they're not. You can beat a guy in lopsided fashion and still be entertaining while you do it. Floyd Mayweather was when he fought Chico Corrales, when he fought Arturo Gatti. Canelo. We hear Bill Haney make associations between Devin and Floyd all the time, but he doesn't make those. How Floyd Mayweather performed, how he looked, how he fought when he was the same age that Devin is now. Those are the associations he can't make because he knows Devin isn't built to fight like that. Some are saying that what we saw was PTSD. Others are saying that he only fought that way to ensure he makes it to the Ryan rematch, when either way the consequences are the same. People don't want to see that. And the boxers themselves are always trying to diminish the role of the spectators in what is this spectator sport. Don't you understand? If the spectators don't want to see you, then who's going to put the money up for you moving forward? Who's going to want to see you fight? Now, you're campaigning as a welterweight, where you don't hold an alphabet title, and you're guaranteed nothing. The whole point and purpose of putting you on that Times Square bill was to build up a fight that is now cold product. Jose Ramirez is a fighter who's often said to be past his best. A slow-footed plotter who's not as sharp as he used to be. So if you can't be ambitious with a guy like that, you're younger than he is. You're supposed to be faster and lighter on your feet, to where you should be able to put together some punches with regularity and get out of there. Whereas you fought the guy like he's got the Ebola virus, a COVID, social distancing. The boxers are always trying to diminish the role of the spectators in what is this spectator sport, when without no spectators, there ain't no sport. Without no spectators, there ain't no demand.
boxing became popular because of the support of the fans, of the people. So make sure that the fans will satisfy in every fight that you have, that you give it to them.
That's true.
That's balance. You cannot pay back of all the sacrifice that you have, and then the people that are not satisfied.
Those are two very different opinions from two former champions. Caleb says that it's not Devin's job to entertain the crowd, where Manny Pacquiao says it is. Which one of them do you think is right? Let's look at the question another way. Which one of those two former champions had more success within the sport and amassed a bigger following? Which one of those two champions generated more money with their fights? More fanfare. Here's a hint. It's the guy who's telling you you have to endear yourself to the fans. Whether you like it or not, in this profession, you have to put on a show for them. Because the moment they don't want to see you, you end up in the Who Needs You Club. Like Demetrius Andre did for a number of years. Do you want to be sat next to that guy? Oh yes, the difference between having options and not having them all boils down to how many people actually want to see you fight. Now, I'm not proposing that Devin and every other fighter like him simply throw caution to the wind and get into tear-ups needlessly. No, you have to find a happy medium between protecting yourself at all times and at all times entertaining the crowd, because you need them. This rise in boxers that think they don't, this bandit mentality, is a byproduct of the Mayweather era, who was not beloved across the board. And who do you always hear Bill likening his son to? He likens him to Floyd Mayweather, who likened his fights to bank heists. And you know what? Maybe that worked for Floyd. The problem is, you're not Floyd. You're not him. I can't stress that enough. So what happens if Turkey pulls the rug from under you and he doesn't want to use you in any of his Ring Magazine or Riyadh season cards? What then? You're a free agent. You don't have a commitment to any promoter, but what that also means is no promoter has a commitment to you or is obligated to keep you busy, keep you active, and pay you. No promoter. At a time where the fans don't even want to see you. I personally, as a consumer of the sport for many, many years now, I could go without a Haney versus Lopez fight because I already know what it's going to look like. I know what it's going to be. I don't need to see it. I don't think it's going to be entertaining. I think Devin is going to go out there, fight another safety-first fight, win a Holm points decision, then act like he's God's gift to boxing afterwards without entertaining anyone. Now, I think Devin is beyond saving, and that applies not just to him, but some of his contemporaries as well. For the next generation of youngsters that are coming through, the next crop of fighters, don't adopt that bandit mentality and think you're going to get somewhere. You're not. Telling a boxer that it's not his job to entertain the crowd is tantamount to telling a chef he doesn't have to cook the food. Saying that it's not Devin's job to entertain the crowd, it's Jose's, is tantamount to telling one team you don't have to play to win. Just don't lose. What kind of advice is that?
Do you see that fight now differently based on how Canelo performed against Skull Eddie?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah? Oh, wow.
It wasn't just the fact that he couldn't cut the ring off. I just feel like the timing now, the age, Canelo is amazing. I mean, not just because of his ability and what he's accomplished, but the fact that he still has the desire for those training camps and those fights. But I just feel like that desire might be fading a little bit. Not because of his love, but just because of age and life. Do you know what I mean? I
do. But it's hardly an excuse for Canelo Alvarez, who still is the naturally bigger, younger fighter who's acclimated to super middleweight. He's been there now for years. Whereas Terence is the guy moving up. The older fighter, the naturally smaller fighter. If what Eddie Hearn is saying is that Canelo has lost some of his passion, well, you're still undisputed champion at this weight, my friend, and with that come responsibilities that you are still expected to perform, so that if you don't, it's no excuse. And I'm a Canelo Alvarez fan, but I don't view him through rose-tinted lenses on. I'm a fan, not a fanatic. There's a bar of standard that he has to uphold. No, I don't think that this fight means to Canelo what it means to Terence. Why would it? Is it possible that Terence is a bit hungrier than Canelo at this stage? Well, he might be, because he didn't make as much money as Canelo throughout his career. That's one thing you have to factor in. He's not going to be as satisfied, not as satiated, because he hasn't made as much money as Canelo Alvarez. There's that factor, but also the psychological one, that Terence still feels he has critics that he has to prove wrong. Naysayers. The win over Spence was not enough. Shortly after that, in spite of everything they said beforehand, all they've been doing is making excuses afterwards. It's the biggest win of Terence's career, but it's not enough. Whereas against Canelo, who Terence has little to no advantages over, it's not a win you can disparage. Even if Canelo Alvarez has lost a step and he's getting on in age, Terence is older than he is by a few years. So age is no excuse.
Don't get me wrong, like, the Crawford fight will definitely get him up for it. But I was actually watching that fight thinking I wouldn't be surprised if he retired and actually didn't fight Crawford, because I don't think he'll want to lose to Crawford, a much smaller guy, just because he's at the end of the road. But the fight's so big and the money's so big, he's going to have to take it. I bet he retires after that fight.
No, really?
Yeah. Why would you carry on? Like, you fight Crawford. Who else is there for Canelo Alvarez to fight?
David Benavidez. Yeah,
but he's just not going to, like, the size of Benavidez. Now, is Benavidez going to come back to 68? I don't know. Like,
yeah, that ship has sailed, and the boxing community needs to take the hint. David couldn't get back down to 168 if he wanted to. He'd have to chop off a leg, maybe two, to make that weight again. It's not going to happen. And are you guys out there getting the impression that Canelo Alvarez is going to return to 175 for David? I think if he were going to go back up there, it would be for Dimitri. In fact, I know that that's what he said. If he were to go back to light heavyweight, it would be for Dimitri specifically, nobody else. So the whole David thing, you guys just need to let it go. Talking about Canelo Alvarez in a context to where his career is winding down, he may not stick around much longer after the Crawford fight. On that, I agree with Eddie Hearn. Let's say you go in there, you beat Crawford, you beat him like a lot of people are expecting you to. Who do you fight after that? Now, there's always somebody else. Another contender, another guy climbing up the ranks. That could be Diego Pacheco. That could be Christian Mabili. Those are solid opponents. There's really nothing wrong with those fights, but hasn't Canelo had enough of them? Part of me actually wants Canelo to retire, hit the reset button on this division, redistribute the belts so that the fighters in it don't have Canelo as an excuse to use anymore, to not fight each other. If he retires, you don't have a choice now. You have to deal with what's out there if he hangs them up. The Crawford fight represents the second fight of what is a 4-fight deal with Turkey El Sheikh. 4. If he beats Crawford, who are the other 2 fights going to be with? Hamza Shiraz, maybe, if he beats Edgar Berlanga. Maybe Christian Mabili. Maybe Chris Eubank. These are not fights that I would be overly excited about. Being honest with you, I'm starting to want Canelo to retire.